Well, hello everybody. My name's Stephen Richardson. This is the second video I've recorded, but the first in conversation video I've recorded because I'm delighted to be joined today by Jane Cutler, our new Deputy President. The point about these in conversation programs, videos, is to show that we're accessible in some senses there and that we'd like to listen to you. And indeed, at the end, I'll be giving you an email address on which you can contact us with any ideas for this, criticism of this, anything you'd like to do. I'll give you that right at the end. This particular video, my first, is about what we see as being the benefits of becoming a member of IChemE and also associated with that, with being chartered. And as I say, I'm delighted to be joined by Jane Cutler, who will be my successor as president starting next year. And I'm going to start by asking you, Jane, why and how did you become involved with IChemE in the first place?
Well, it's actually a relatively short story in the sense that I wasn't involved till 2014. And at that stage, I was CEO of NOPSEMA, the offshore oil and gas safety and environmental regulator. And a fellow of the IChemE, who I happened to go to university with, said, "Jane, how come you're not a member? You're the type of person that IChemE needs." So I thought about it and thought, well, I was pretty active with Engineers Australia very early in my career. Then that whole activity slid into a ditch. But perhaps it was time to get involved and give something back to the profession, which had set me in good stead for my professional career. So I joined up, I became a fellow, and then I got the opportunity to stand for Congress and subsequently for the Deputy President and presidential role.
Excellent. Well, I'm delighted by that and delighted that you stood and I'm delighted that you're sitting apparently beside me, even though you are quite a few thousand miles away from me at the moment. I've been giving some thought myself to what the point of membership is. And so I'm going to run a few ideas past you, Jane, and then you can criticise as we get there and add anything else you'd like to on the things. And of course, there's the purely techie bit, if I can put it like that, or the formal bit, which is about professional status and enhancing knowledge. And IChemE offers a whole load of stuff on that, which I can talk about. Latest news, articles in the journals and this sort of thing. That's good. Something that's quite new and come out of our Learned Society Committee is something called a Knowledge Hub, and that's a big virtual library containing thousands, and it's increasing daily, thousands and thousands of technical resources that are accessible to all members, and that's good. Something that's particularly important as we've come around issues like climate change and so on and so forth, and maybe post-COVID, is how we influence future thinking in government and how we do policy work, and I think that's quite important. And of course, they're the purely mercenary things like you get discounted rates on things like journals and books and going to conferences. So that's quite nice for members to have that. And the final bit, and curiously, in many ways, the bit I've found the most useful bit is access to supportive member networks of all different sorts there. They're the regional member groups, they're the special interest groups on water and pharmaceuticals and so on. And also simply access to the community more widely. I've learned a lot from my fellow chemical engineers, particularly being an academic, and getting a whole load of industrial viewpoints on things, which has been really, really good. Are there other things there, Jane, that you'd want to add to that, perhaps?
Yeah, actually, I would probably emphasise the peer recognition of professional competence. For a whole variety of reasons, communities and governments are challenging engineers as to a demonstration of their competence. Now, it's typically an outworking of some form of disaster, and it would be nice to get ahead of the game in that. But what it does is, as a professional, it's actually twofold. It's recognition of the technical skills, but also as a professional, it's about ethics and judgment. So those two elements of professional competence come together. And, we call it chartered in this particular case, but it's very analogous to the processes that the medical profession, accountants, lawyers, etc. go through, where you take someone that's, if you like, educated but raw as they leave university, and over a period of time with mentoring, with ongoing professional development, reach that stage where their peers, other members who are chartered, recognise that they've reached that level. And I think that's really important in today's world, where there is less and less trust, and we are seeing jurisdictions, particularly here in Australia, want to have registration of engineers. So presumably if you're registered, you're good. And if you're not registered, well, maybe not so much. And of course, being Australia, will do that in every state ultimately, or many states, or even some states. So it won't be consistent across the board at this point. The second point I'd like to really add is the knowledge, the availability of chemical engineering related content. It's actually to some extent curated. It's not just any old content that you get by punching into Google. There's been thought and decision making about what's in, what's out. So that's helpful, because sometimes it's hard to work out who's right and who's wrong. And the third, I think, it's more than access to a supportive network of contacts, member groups, special interest groups, all the other folks getting together around common interests or common geography. The feedback that some members in the Victorian committee gave to me, I asked the question, why are you sitting on this committee? And they said, it's the volunteering that brings us together for a common purpose that really has built our networks a lot more powerfully than just fronting up at an event. And I think that's even more true in a COVID world, where we're on the screen a lot of the time and not interacting face to face over a cup of tea or a glass of beverage of some form. So, yeah, so, you know, Steve, do you have some additional comments on, I guess it's the IChemE's vision, led by members, supporting members and serving society? What does that serving society mean to you?
Well, of course, it is absolutely why we're placed on Earth as IChemE. That is absolutely what we're about. And I think COVID has shown us some of the things there. We're about to issue a new climate change statement, which I hope will actually be rather more, what I know will be rather more definite than things we've had before, and will actually lead to actions. And what I'm keen we do, by and large, is do things that we're actually good at. It's very easy to write down words and say words, and we can mean every single one of them there, but I'd actually like to get some achievements. So what I'm keen on is, when we're doing things about serving society, that we're actually doing things that we as chemical engineers can do. And the only thing I would add to that, I guess, is that it's doing it with other professional institutions. You know, as chemical engineers, I know we're special, and I feel myself to be terribly special. That's kind of not the point. It's the fact that actually, to be influential, if we're not going to work with other people, we're going to be so much less so, and together we are going to be so much stronger than the sum of our parts. And so therefore, on things like climate change, we need to work with other institutions, and not just in the UK, around the world, in how we do things. I was going to add one or two little points, if I may, just to your why become chartered and everything like that. And may I do that? Which is, of course, and you may curse me for this, I've been an academic all my life. I have worked for industry, but never in industry. And so when I've been teaching students, particularly things like safety and so on, you know, in response to the question, well, what would you know about that? The fact that I've become a chartered member is really important. It adds real credibility there. And the fact that I've done a lot of accident investigation, it's also given me credibility there when I've been on the investigation teams and in court when I've been cross-examined by people. And I thought you'd like this as my kind of final little point on this thing, which is on a mercenary level, it's enabled me to increase my earnings considerably. Okay, by being chartered, I have paid all my IChemE subs so easily because I could do that. It's that bit of credibility, it's the professional recognition that you've already talked about, Jane, that really makes a difference there. Are there any other things you wanted to add, Jane, at this point here? Because otherwise I thought we might wind up this short video.
Not at this point. I guess the only thing I would add is some employers have expectations that key staff, particularly those signing off the work of more junior staff, have are professionally qualified. So whether it's an employer expectation or a client expectation in the consulting world, and I think over time, a much greater proportion of chemical engineers will find themselves as consultants compared to the past, where many worked for much of their career in a single industry or even a single company within that industry. So that trend, I think, will place greater expectations on the professional qualifications of the contractors, the consultants and the subcontractors, which early days, watch this space, but unfortunately I think it's a trend that we'll see more of. So that sort of brings to a conclusion my thoughts. Steve, any closing comments?
No, well, thank you for that, and I can only agree with you. I think that is going to be the trend in terms of employment. Certainly, I hope that everybody watching, and I hope some people are watching indeed, have found this useful. And if not, or if you have suggestions about this, or indeed any other programs in this series or future programs, please let us know. There's an email address, which I'm about to give you, where you contact us, and Jane and I will see it, and that will be helpful. And it's the one I've used before, which is president@IChemE.org. There will be future In Conversation videos, and they're all going to be on the IChemE YouTube channel. But for now, let me thank Jane very much indeed for giving us her thoughts. Thank you very much indeed, Jane. And thank you all for watching. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. And we look forward to hearing from you with suggestions or questions we could answer in future videos.